Alrighty. Welcome once again to the Kokino Podcast. Today, in this episode, I'm going to talk about a writing teacher that I really was a fan of. So if you don't know, I never went to high school. I was homeschooled, and I never really completed homeschool. I just took the GED or whatever. But I went to community college instead, and took the basic writing classes in community college. And I want to talk about my favorite writing teacher in the Writing 51. His name was Daniel Siegfried. And he was a really short guy who had these huge glasses, very kooky looking. I didn't actually like him when I first saw him. It was only when he started talking that it became fascinating, because everything that came out of his mouth was like he spoke with certainty, and he just had interesting things to say about text, interesting things to say about the things that he was reading. Like every single class was like a joy to go to. I don't remember some of the things that he said, but like there was this one book that he had us read. He assigned us to read called The Medium is the Massage. It's actually a sequel to the book The Medium is the Message, but he just had us read The Medium is the Massage. It's a book by Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan, if you don't know, is a guy who he studied media a lot way back in the day in the 1960s, and he kind of made this prediction that media was going to become more and more he kind of basically made the prediction that the internet happening, and that's kind of what he's famous for. He's famous for a lot of other stuff, but that's the book. That's what he's famous for. So anyways, my writing teacher Daniel, he made us read this book, and this book is a very weird book. And then he had so many interesting things to say about this book. Like, the book is the reason that it's called The Medium is the Massage is interesting. It's a pun. It's a play on words. The medium is the message, it's saying, and it's also saying the medium is the massage, because the book itself, if you pick it up, if you actually try to read it, it forces you to flip it around, because there's stuff that's upside down, there's stuff that's warped that you have to look at, and there's like stuff that's backwards that you have to look at in the mirror. So it kind of forces you to move your hands and move the book around all the time. You know, a normal book, you sit down, you read it, and you just kind of stationary. But this book forces you to move around. And so the medium, the book, is a massage because it's forcing your muscles to move. And that's what a massage is. You know what? It sounded much more interesting when he said it. He also said, like, this book, like, there were things in this book. This book was so, like, weird. I don't even remember. Like, it wasn't really even like a text. It was a lot of pictures with some text. And it was very interesting. It was like reading a comic book, except with real pictures. Very, very interesting stuff. There was also another thing he said about it, like, this book was making the argument that I couldn't see that this book was making this argument, but he said this book was making the argument that the alphabet and the creation of letters, the idea that everything, like, there's a place for everything and everything in its place, was actually what created prisons. Because before the alphabet, the idea of someone having a place, or something having a place and everything in its place, that kind of thing, was not a thing in your mind, in the mind. It was not a thing that existed. And so people did not place people into prisons. At least that's the argument that he makes. And it was fascinating. And he made a bunch of other fascinating arguments about all kinds of books. He talked about Michael Foucault. I don't even know who Michael Foucault is, but he was just like, the great thing about him is that he had such a passion for the stuff that he was talking about. Like, he even told the story of this, like, he told, like, reading books became like a virus to him, and he just kept on reading and reading and reading and writing notes in books, and just, like, to the point where he lost, like, a lot of his eyesight, and he had to get these thick glasses or whatever. So, yeah, he was really cool. And he also presented me with a way to write paragraphs and to write essays that I still use parts of today. Because, I don't know, like, when a writing teacher tells you to write a paragraph, they don't actually give you a constructive way to do it, right? They don't actually give you a means to do it if you don't, like, actually want to do it. But this guy, he not only gave you a way to write the paragraph, he wrote, like, example paragraphs and example essays on the board from suggestions from the students, just to prove how easy it was to do. He had this system where you had, like, the topic. I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like robotic a little bit, but if you just want to get through writing an essay, it's perfect because college professors love it. I used it in other fucking classes and it was great and people didn't even notice. But you basically go the topic sentence of the paragraph, then you go a primary support for the topic sentence, and then you go a secondary support, and then you go another secondary support, and then maybe a third secondary support, and then another primary support, and then another secondary support, and then another third support, and then you do that, and then you do a closing statement. The closing statement is either going to sum up what was in the paragraph before, or it's going to transfer you over to the next paragraph. And so he had just this perfect system for how to write down paragraphs, how to set up essays, and how to write them down, and how to actually think about this stuff. Because it also, like before, the way that I would think about writing an essay was I would try to write it from beginning to end. I would always try to start with the beginning, start with the intro or whatever, the introduction. But he taught me that you don't necessarily have to do that. And the most important part of the paragraph, the part that the juice of the paragraph is the body paragraphs, the things you're actually going to say. So he came up with the idea or said, just say the things that you're going to say. Say all the things that you're going to say first, and then you can introduce it, and then you can end it. It made it so much easier to do. And also, I don't know what else. Man, he had systems for everything. Like he made us be able to tell the difference between an opinion and a fact. And he had the places like those primary support, secondary support. A primary support has to be an opinion. A secondary support can be an opinion or a fact, but it should be a fact. So like you'd say the primary support, and like the topic sentence had to be an opinion. It cannot be a fact. It's like, that's all very specific things that really help. And like I learned the difference between clauses and non-clauses, all the compound sentences, complex sentences, whatever, in a very simple and easy to understand way. And maybe it was because I was in my 20s, and learning this stuff in your 20s is when you should learn it because it's so much easier, right? Like if you went to high school in your 20s after having experienced thinking logically about things, I think you would do a better job. But I don't know. Anyways, yeah, he was a cool teacher, and lots of interesting things to say. Every time that he was doing, like he's just like, and he was so passionate in the way that he wrote on the board, and like he didn't have good handwriting or anything, but he's just so energetic and passionate and fun to watch and interesting. He made life worth living. I think I remember saying that to my mom. Like he really makes life worth living. It's fun. I don't know. But anyways, what else did he do? Anything else cool? Oh, he also kind of really got me interested in analyzing things, because he just kind of would show, like the thing that he always said, like the thing that he quoted himself saying, or I don't know, he just always said this, is everything is an argument. And what he meant by that is that every single thing that you do is an argument for something. Like that's why he was talking about the book, the Medium is a Massage. Like he was talking about all these things in it that were arguments about what was going on. Like the medium is the message. The medium that you put the thing in is a part of the argument. And you have to examine everything. And he made it look like fun to examine commercials and to examine and he also went in like the compare and contrast and like the placing in different subsections. I don't remember all those different types of essays that you're supposed to do. Those were really cool. He just like explained a lot of things that I didn't know about writing and made me into a much more knowledgeable person about how to construct a sentence and how to make it work and why it works the way it does. And it's just great. Really enjoyed having him as a teacher. I think he actually was able to become a teacher because he passed this like really rigorous test where during it you were supposed to read through like a text, and then on the spot, like you have like 5 hours or something to read through a text or something, and then on the spot right after that you're supposed to write an essay about that text while quoting verbatim things from that text or something like that. Like he took some kind of shortcut to getting like a teacher credential. And that was really cool too. You like to examine things, you like to analyze things, and like He would every time that we came into class, he would give us like a new idea. Like how I think there was this one time he gave the idea of like a color like blue. The only way that you can know that a color is a color if you think of a blue object. Without that blue object, the color would be just the color would not exist. The color would not exist without an example of the color. So like it was like a very interesting. I don't know. It was interesting when he said it. He's very good at phrasing these things. He also explained metaphors, the difference between a metaphor and a simile, and like what a trope was. Because a trope, when you think about trope nowadays, it's like, well, that's like a stereotypical thing that happens in a story. But no, he was explaining tropes as a trope is actually the word for the subset or the tree, the root of metaphor. Like metaphor is a type of trope. Simile is a type of trope. And he explained how cool those were and how like in Italy, there was an argument that art was more important than other things, like because people on Italian money were artists and poets and that kind of thing, whereas people in the United States were like inventors and presidents and people of power. That was an interesting argument. He just made a lot of interesting arguments. Really cool guy. I really enjoyed his class, and I wish there were more classes like his class. It was a Writing 51 class. It was a beginner writing class, but I learned so much, and I had such a blast. Made me he made me want to become like an analyst, essay writer person. Anyways, I think that this is enough content for this episode of the Kokino Podcast. So next time, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed this one.